I just laid out all of these hurdles that he's going to have to overcome. And I'm not saying him and Vivek aren't serious dudes, but you got to really know the system to be able to accomplish this.
Hello and welcome to the Doge and Maha News channel. My name is Chris. In this video, we're going to focus on the Department of Government Efficiency, and we're going to watch this piece of video from the Lex Friedman Podcast. His guest is Saagar Enjeti. I believe that's how you pronounce it. But he brings up a lot of interesting counterpoints as far as the obstacles and the barriers that Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to come up against, especially regarding Congress and the Senate. So it's a really interesting conversation. Hope you enjoy it.
I am sympathetic to DOGE, to the whole Department of Government Efficiency.
How unreal is it that it's called DOGE?
Actually, with Elon, it's quite real. I guess I've just, I've accepted Elon as a major political figure in the U.S. But the DOGE committee, the Department of Government Efficiency, is a non-statutory agency that has zero funding that Donald Trump says will advise OMB, the Office of Management and Budget. Now, two things. Number one is, as I predicted, DOGE would become a quote-unquote blue ribbon commission. So this is a non-statutory blue ribbon commission that has been given authority to Vivek Ramaswamy and to Elon Musk. Secondary, their recommendations to government should be complete by July of 2026, according to the press release released by Trump. First of all, what that will mean is they're probably going to need private funding to even set all this up. That's great. Not a problem for Elon. But you're basically going to be able to have to commission GAO reports, Government Accountability Office, and other reports and fact-finding missions across the government, which is fantastic. Trump can even empower you to go through to every agency and to collect figures. None of it matters one iota if Republican appropriators in the House of Representatives care what you have to say. Historically, they don't give a shit what the executive office has to say. So every year, the president releases his own budget. It used to mean something, but in the last decade or so, it's become completely meaningless. The House Ways and Means Committee and the People's House are the ones who originate all appropriations and set up spending. So that's one, is that DOGE in and of itself has no power. It has no ability to compel or force people to do anything. Its entire case for being, really, if you think about it mechanically, is to try and convince and provide a report to Republican legislators to be able to cut spending. So that's that. Now, we all know how Congress takes to...
Yeah, they're definitely going to have a hard time getting those reports out of the government agencies as far as their budgets. I think these government agencies are really going to drag their feet. So they're going to make it as hard as possible on Musk and Ramaswamy to do what they've been tasked to do. But at the same time, also Musk has a pretty big bullhorn. And with X, and he can obviously, as Kevin O'Leary said, squeeze some heads and put pressure on people to provide the reports.
Government reports and whether they get acted on or not. So that's number one. Number two is the figures that Elon is throwing out there. I want to give them some advice because people do not understand federal government spending. The absolute vast majority of government spending is entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare, which are untouchable under Donald Trump and the most politically popular programs in the world, and military spending. Discretionary non-military spending, I don't have the exact figure in front of me, is a very, very small part of the federal budget. Now, within that small slice, about 90% of that 8 is bipartisan and is supported by like everybody. NOAA, the hurricane guys, like people like that. People who are flying into the eye of the hurricane, people who are government inspectors of X, Y, and Z. The parts that are controversial that you're actually able to touch, things like welfare programs, like food stamps, is an extraordinary small slice. So what's the number he put out there? 5 trillion, something like that. There is only one way to do that. And it really...
$2 trillion. Elon Musk put out the number of reducing the annual expenditure by $2 trillion. Currently, they're roughly around $6 trillion per year. So he wants to cut, a third of the spending out.
Realistically, under the current thing, you have to radically change the entire way that the Pentagon buys everything. And I support that, but I just want to be very, very clear. But I haven't seen enough energy around that. There's this real belief in the U.S. that we spend billions on all of these programs that are doing complete bullshit. But like the absolute vast majority of it is military spending and entitlements. Trump has made clear entitlements are off the table. It's not going to happen. So the way that you're going to be able to cut realistically, military spending over a decade-long period is to really change the way that the United States procures military equipment, hands out government contracts. Elon actually does have the background to be able to accomplish this because he
Yeah, I mean, he's right in that way. I mean, the military, the things that they buy, they're always much more expensive than you can get it in the private sector. I mean, I've heard rumors about $600 toilets that you can, go buy at Home Depot for, $80 or something like that. So there's a lot of waste in military spending and the way they procure things. Their procurement process needs to be streamlined so they procure things a lot more efficiently and in a way that they get much better prices, at least market prices, not these increased prices just because it's a military item or a military spec. It's honestly kind of ridiculous and embarrassing how much money they can spend on things that are fairly commonplace that, you and I can buy at a regular price at Home Depot or something like that.
he has had to wrangle with SpaceX and the bullshit that Boeing has been pulling for over a decade. But I really want everybody's expectations to be very set around this. Just remember, non-statutory, blue ribbon. So if he's serious about it, I just laid out all of these hurdles that he's going to have to overcome. And I'm not saying him and Vivek aren't serious dudes, but you got to really know the system to be able to accomplish this.
So you just laid out the reality of how Washington works. To give the counterpoint that I think you're probably also rooting for is that one is a statement like Peter Thiel said, don't bet against Elon.
Sure.
One of the things that you don't usually have with Blue Ribbon is the kind of megaphone that Elon has.
True.
And I would even set the financial aspects aside. Just the influence he has with the megaphone, but also just with other people who are also really influential.
Mm-hmm.
I think that can have real power when backed by sort of a populist movement.
I don't disagree with you, but let me give you a case where this just failed. So Elon endorsed who for Senate Majority Leader? Rick Scott, right? Who got the least amount of votes in the U.S. Senate for GOP leader? Rick Scott. John Thune is the person who got it. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up, one of my favorite books, Master of the Senate, by Robert Caro, part of the LBJ series, the Senate as an institution, it reveres independence. It reveres, the entire theory of the Senate is to cool down the mob that is in the House of Representatives and to deliberate. That's its entire body. They are set up to be immune from public pressure. Now, I'm not saying they can't be pressured, but that example I just gave on Rick Scott is a very important one of he literally endorsed somebody for leader. So did Tucker Carlson. So did a lot of people online. And only 13 senators voted for Rick Scott. The truth is that they don't care. Like, they're set up where they're marginally popular in their own home states. They'll be able to win their primaries, and that's all they really need to do to get elected. And they have 6-year terms, not even up for 4 years. So will Elon still be interested in politics 6 years from now? That's a legitimate question for a Republican senator. So maybe he could get the House of Representatives to sign off maybe on some of his things, but there's no guarantee that the Senate is going to agree with any of that. There's a story that Karos tells in the Master of the Senate book, which I love, where Thomas Jefferson was in Paris during the writing of the Constitution, and he asked Washington, he said, why did you put in a Senate, a bicameral legislature? And Washington said, why did you pour your tea into a saucer? And Jefferson goes, to cool it. And Washington says, just so. That's to explain it.
That's a pretty good quote.
He was a man of very few words. He was a brilliant man.
Okay, so you actually outlined the most likely thing that's going to happen with Doge as it hits the wall of Washington. What is the sort of the most successful thing that can be pulled off?
The most successful thing they could do is, right now I think they're really obsessed with designing cuts, right? And identifying cuts. I would redesign systems of procurement. I would redesign the way that we have processes in place to dispense taxpayer dollars. Because the truth is that appropriations itself, again, are set by the United States Congress. But the way that those appropriations are spent by the government, the executive has some discretionary authority. So your ability as the executive to be a good steward of the taxpayer money and to redesign a system, which I actually think Elon could be good at this, and Vivek too, in terms of their entrepreneurial spirit, is the entire Pentagon procurement thing, it needs to be burned to the ground. Number one, it's bad for the Pentagon. It gives them substandard equipment. It rewards very old weapon systems and programs and thinking that can be easily defeated by people who are studying that for vulnerabilities. The perfect example is all of this drone warfare in Ukraine and in Russia. I mean, drone warfare costs almost nothing. And yet drone swarms and hypersonic missiles pose huge dangers to U.S. systems, which cost more than hundreds of billions of dollars. So my point is that giving nimble procurement and systemic change in the way that we think about executing the mission that Congress does give you actually could save the most amount of money in the long run.
I think that's a really good point. It's the systems where a lot of this money can be saved. And he talked a lot about the military procurement systems and ways. I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity there. You know, how are they buying things? How are they making decisions on what to buy? You know, how are they deciding who gets the contracts, that kind of thing? They could probably save a lot of money just improving those systems. I'm curious how much it costs, you know, what the procurement costs are, not how much the items cost, but what does it cost to go through the process in order to procure an item. I'm sure they have that data. And also when you're talking about things like Medicare, Social Security, how much does it cost per dollar of money that is distributed? What is the cost to actually cut those checks? Can we reduce that cost significantly? You know, let's say, I don't know what the real numbers are, but what if it costs, you know, $1 to distribute $100? Can we cut that in half? You know, that's a significant savings right there. So if they can streamline those systems, make it a lot more efficient, and also make sure that the people that are not supposed to get money don't get money. For example, people on a do not pay list, or corporations on a do not pay list, or, you know, for example, people that have passed away. You know, how do we make sure that we're not sending money out to people that aren't alive anymore? You know, those kind of systems, if we can improve those systems, I think we can save a lot of money just in the processing of the dollars that are distributed out to the American people.
That's where I would really focus in on. The other one is, you know, counter to everything I just said, is maybe they listen. Maybe the Republicans are like, yeah, okay, let's do it. The problem again, though, is swing state people who need to get reelected, they need to do one thing. They need to deliver for their district. They need to run on stuff. And nobody has ever run on cutting money for your state. They have run on bringing money to your state. And that's why earmarks and a lot of these other things are extraordinarily popular in Congress, is because it's such an easy way to show constituents how you're working for them whenever it does come reelection time. So it's a very difficult system. And I also want to tell people who are frustrated by this, I share your frustration, but the system is designed to work this way. And for 2 centuries, the Senate has stood as a bulwark against literally every popular change. And because of that, it's designed to make sure that it's so popular for long enough that it has to become inevitable before the status quo can change. That's really, really frustrating, but you should take comfort in that it's always been that way.
So I think Saagar Enjeti makes a lot of really good points in this video. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. If I'm saying it wrong, please let me know in the comments below. But one thing that might be different now, especially with the populist movement, is that the voters are going to say, hey, if you didn't save America money by cutting costs, then we're not going to vote for you again. That could be a switch in the way people are thinking as far as their voting. Maybe they're not as interested in, hey, how much money did you bring into our district, as they are in how much money did you actually save the American people by cutting costs. That could be a change in mindset in voters. I don't know for sure. We'll find out in a few years. But I think that's a really interesting point. I'm just hopeful that the Congress will get on board with the DOGE movement, with the Department of Government Efficiency movement, and actually cut a lot of costs and put a lot of initiatives through Congress, a lot of new laws that will cut costs and streamline processes. I'm just really hopeful that there. Let me know in the comments below. Are you hopeful, or do you think it's going to be a fight by Congress to continue to spend like crazy like they have been? Let me know in the comments below. If you're really interested in following Doge like I am, I put out videos almost every single day, so make sure you like and subscribe to this video. Also, if you want to see a playlist of other Doge videos, go ahead and check out this video right here. And also, if you want to subscribe, you can hit this button right up here. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.